G'day, and welcome to the Midlife Introvert. We're heading out for a day in the country with the kids. A family adventure awaits. A chance to escape the hustle and bustle of modern life and reconnect with nature. Actually, the power was out, we needed somewhere to take the kids. It's the Western Australia Day long weekend and our original plan was to head down to the Pinjarra festival. We were supposed to go down on Saturday, but after a long work week I was still feeling a bit run down, so we decided to take it easy for the day. The plan was changed to Sunday instead, but Western Australia had other ideas. Strong storms moved through the area overnight, bringing heavy rain, strong winds and widespread power outages across a number of suburbs. Unfortunately, the weather also forced the cancellation of the Pinjarra festival. With the power still out at home, and 3 boys starting to bounce off the walls, we figured there wasn't much point sitting around in the dark all day. So instead, we packed everyone into the car and headed south to Pinjarra for a family day out at Redz Zoo. We've been talking about visiting for a little while, and with an unexpected free day suddenly available, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to finally go and see what it was all about. Before long, we arrived at Redz Zoo just outside of Pinjarra. The zoo originally opened in 2005 as Peel Zoo, before being renamed Redz Zoo in September 2019. Today, it is home to a mixture of native Australian animals, exotic species, reptiles, birds, and farm animals. As you can probably hear in the background, there were quite a few leaf blowers running today. The storms that rolled through the night before didn't just affect the festival and the power back at home. The zoo had also taken a bit of a hit, and the staff were busy clearing branches, leaves and debris from the paths before visitors arrived. Heading towards the entrance, we passed the Ranger Redz van, followed shortly afterwards by one of those classic stick your face through the whole photo boards that seem to appear at just about every family attraction. By this point we were all keen to get inside and see what the zoo had to offer. Not far from the entrance we spotted our first animal of the morning, a peacock quietly perched outside, seemingly enjoying the peace and quiet following the previous night's storms. The dog we'd spotted before through the window a few moments earlier also seemed interested in the latest arrivals. Then, without much warning, he launched himself at the glass and quickly became our first close-up animal encounter of the morning. Fortunately for both of us, there was a window between us. Not far from the reptile displays we came across the zoo's resident ferrets, and unlike some of the larger animals we'd be seeing later, these two wasted absolutely no time coming over to investigate their latest visitors. Within seconds they were climbing, sniffing, and generally making it very clear they wanted to know exactly what was going on. Before long, my son and my wife were trying to encourage them over for a closer look, although I suspect the ferrets were just as curious about us as we were about them. After a few minutes with the ferrets, we decided it was probably time to continue exploring the zoo. Not before one final extreme close-up, of course. And as you're about to discover, the camera would spend a lot more of the morning getting far closer to the animals than originally intended. Next up were the guinea pigs, or as they're commonly known on the internet, furry potatoes. There seem to be dozens of them scattered throughout the enclosure, ranging from smooth-coated guinea pigs through to a few that look like they just rolled out of bed. Like many of the animals we'd seen so far, they seemed completely unconcerned by our presence and simply got on with the important business of being guinea pigs. Continuing on, we came across one of Australia's most recognisable birds, the black-tailed cockatoo. At first he looked like he might be up for another close-up encounter. Unfortunately, the moment he spotted the camera, he decided he had better things to do and promptly wandered off. Its neighbour, a pink and grey galah, seemed to have a very different opinion. Unlike the cockatoo, this one appeared to be far more interested in what we were doing and was more than happy to come over for a closer inspection. By this point, it was becoming clear that some of the animals were naturally curious, while others preferred to keep their distance. A nearby peacock seemed content to simply watch the world go by from the top of a cage, while just beyond him we spotted our first kangaroos of the morning. And then we were getting a little closer, in fact close enough to start hand feeding them. Just a quick stop at the gate and we made our way into the kangaroo petting area. I spotted what looked like two exceptional contenders for another close-up, and then one of them immediately decided to save me the trouble. There it was, our latest extreme animal close-up of the morning. According to Felix, this white peacock looked like it was moonwalking. Unfortunately, once he had said that, I couldn't unsee it. Once we'd recovered from whatever that was, it was back to the kangaroos. Michael quickly made a new friend and seemed quite happy to spend a few minutes giving him a scratch under the neck. Judging by the look on the kangaroo's face, don't think it had any objections. I stood there for almost 15 seconds waiting for this silver pheasant to make a noise. There we go. We were watching the goats and heard a very strange noise coming from somewhere nearby. Naturally, we had to investigate. The culprit turned out to be this little Corella. Unfortunately, he refused to perform for us. Luckily, Michael speaks fluent bird. After several failed attempts, Michael finally convinced it to perform on cue. With that nonsense out of the way, we headed over to the walk-through aviary. We were immediately greeted by this fellow, perched on top of a birdhouse, as birds tend to do. My wife seemed to have already made a new friend. This galah seemed more interested in scratches and attention than it was with any of the other birds around it. Before long, it was happily following her around and coming back for more. This black cockatoo wasn't concerned with meeting us, especially once the camera appeared. The other black cockatoo, however, had a keen interest in me. I was fairly certain it could smell my fear. We found a bird what I believe is called a royal spoonbill. It kind of looks like it was mostly finished before someone changed the plans at the last minute. Michael was having a lot better luck making friends than I was. Eventually the cockatoo moved on to Michael. Apparently I wasn't interesting enough anymore. With that out the way, we left the aviary, under the watchful supervision of these two geese. Next up was a wombat, and like most wombats, it had absolutely no interest in us whatsoever. It was far more concerned with finishing lunch. Unfortunately, the overnight storms hadn't just disrupted our plans. They'd also caused some damage here at the zoo. One of the wombat enclosures had been damaged by falling trees, and the resident wombat had to be temporarily relocated while staff worked on the area to make it safe again. Even while we were visiting, clean-up efforts were still underway. We then came across another wombat, who demonstrated that there were, in fact, multiple ways to enter a pipe. It simply chose not to choose the obvious one. So we spent the next little while exploring the zoo and taking in the animals. So rather than me trying to comment on every single one, we'll leave you with some of the sights and sounds from our visit. And with that, our visit to Redz Zoo had come to an end. We'd like to thank the staff for having us, and for all the work they've been doing behind the scenes following the recent storms. And thank you for coming along with us. We'll see you on the next adventure. I'm going to go now and steal some oranges from Harvey.